Do you want to be the ultimate psionic skirmisher that makes your enemies become best friends with the ground? Do you want to break stereotypes and be the smartest orc in town? Do you want to become the epitome of hit and run? Then this is the build for you. Hey guys, it's Wonders, and I'm back with yet another build video. I've been playing 5e for a better half of a decade, and I've played through multiple high-level D&D campaigns, as well as DM'd a decent amount of time, so I definitely have a lot of experience with D&D. It's been a while since I've made a build video, and with that being the case, I decided to start off with something a little more simple, and we have a straight fighter build. Don't worry though, even though it's not a multi-class, there's a lot of unique decisions I make with this build that make this not your average fighter. First of all, as you probably already know since you clicked this video, we're going to be focusing on the Psi Warrior Fighter subclass. What inspired me to make this build is at the time of recording, just a couple weeks ago, they released the playtest for the Scion class. I have a whole breakdown of that Unearthed Arcana, by the way, if you want to check it out right here. But anyway, with all this talk of psionics and the Scion class, I decided I might as well try out the official Scion subclass that we already have in the game. Yes, there's also the Psi Knife Rogue and technically the Aberrant Mind Warlock, but I decided I wanted to try out the Psi Warrior Fighter first. One of the main things I noticed when looking through the Psi Warrior Fighter is that it has a lot of really good synergies with the base fighter class, and it's really good at knocking people down, pushing people, and as well as taking advantage of movement speed. And the biggest downside of it is that most of its subclass abilities are based on intelligence. Luckily though, through the Shillelagh cantrip that I can get through the Origin feat, Magic Initiate Druid, I'm able to circumvent that significantly. It definitely limits my weapons to either a club or a quarterstaff, but about halfway through the fighter's level progression, that becomes a non-issue, since you're able to apply different weapon masteries on any weapon you're using at the time. This build definitely trades a little bit of damage for more control and defensive options, but it also gives you a really unique playstyle that I think this is probably one of the best skirmishers that you can make with the 2024 rules as of recording. If you're watching this video and they already released the Artificer in August of 2025, or they released the 2024 updated Blade Singer, this build, if you want to multi-class it, would synergize really well with the Artificer or the Blade Singer Wizard. So just consider that there are things in 2024 that will make this build more multi-classable than it is right now. But honestly, without multi-classing, this ends up being a really versatile and well-rounded character build, and I'm really happy with it. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is I'm going to be going through all of the abilities and decisions I made for each level. I'm also going to be doing a DPR average, which is damage per round of a 4-round combat for the level tiers of 6, 11, 17, and 20. And if you want to skip around a bit, just know I have it all in the timestamps down below. Let's go ahead and get on with the build. All right, so first of all, level 1, we're obviously picking fighter for the class. I'm going to start out with the dueling fighting style, and then for weapon masteries, definitely pick up the club slow mastery and the quarterstaff topple mastery, and then literally for all the weapon masteries in the rest of the build, pick your favorite. Probably good to have a heavy crossbow for the times you need to use ranged attacks, and having the push weapon mastery is nice to have, so go ahead and do that. For the background, I'm going to be going custom background, but if your DM doesn't allow it, you're going to be going with the guide background. Unfortunately, the guide background doesn't have the ability scores we want, but it's the only origin feat with Magic Initiate Druid. I would definitely go for Con and Dex if you go with the guide background. What we're going to go with custom background is +2 in intelligence and +1 in constitution. And then for Magic Initiate Druid, you want to 100% take the Shillelagh cantrip. For the second cantrip, pick your favorite. Guidance could be good for out of combat utility. Also, Spare the Dying could be good to have since you're not going to have any healing abilities. I'm going to go with Thorn Whip though, just for extra control. And then for the first level spell, I'm picking Long Strider. And again, if you're doing custom background, this part isn't super crucial to the build, but I'm going to be using heavy armor, so my stealth checks are going to be at disadvantage. So I'm going to actually pick stealth as a proficiency, just so stealth checks aren't terrible. And then I'm also going to pick perception for a similar reason. My wisdom isn't going to be high at all, so I might as well have proficiency in it just to make it decent. And then pick your favorite for tool. I thought it would be fun if I picked woodcarver's tools because I'm going to be using a wooden club or wooden quarterstaff. It's just kind of a fun roleplay tool proficiency. And then for species, we're going to be going with orc. The main reason we're picking orc is actually for adrenaline rush. It says you can take the dash action as a bonus action. When you do so, you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to your proficiency bonus. You can use this trait a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a short or long rest. So you're going to be able to bonus action dash a lot. And because it comes back on a short rest, especially at high levels, you're basically going to always be able to bonus action dash. This becomes very important later in the build. I thought about going Wood Elf, but getting double speed as a bonus action is a bit better than getting +5 movement speed, even though it's limited. Another possible route you could go is you could go Wood Elf, but then take 1 level in Rogue just to get bonus action dash. But for me, it's a straight fighter build, so I am going Orc. Picking Orc and Elvish for languages seems appropriate. For ability scores, we're going with point buy, and we're gonna go 15 strength, 12 dexterity, 13 con, 15 intelligence, 8 wisdom, and 8 charisma. We got the +2 in intelligence to make it a +17, and then we got a +1 in constitution to make it a 14. Even though we're gonna be focusing on Shillelagh, the reason why I have strength so high, eventually there's an ability I'm gonna be using that uses strength as a saving throw DC. So I wanted the strength to be pretty decent. And because you're gonna be running around skirmishing and avoiding getting hit a lot, as well as having a high AC, I decided that constitution could be a little lower than I typically would want for a melee character. It's still pretty good though. As far as starting equipment, you're gonna wanna go with the heaviest armor available to you and a shield. So you're gonna get chainmail here at level 1, but then try your best to, as quickly as possible, getting plate. So for level 1, you're gonna bonus action be casting Shillelagh on your club, and you're gonna be hitting people, slowing them. You could use your quarterstaff instead. It doesn't really matter here at early levels which weapon you use. One synergy that I didn't realize until making this build that I'm definitely gonna be using in the future is if you read the Topple weapon mastery, it has something in it that I didn't expect. It says, if you hit a creature with a quarterstaff, you can force the creature to make a constitution saving throw. This is what I didn't expect. DC 8 plus the ability modifier used to make the attack roll and your proficiency bonus. On a failed save, the creature has the prone condition. So when I have Shillelagh active on my weapon, Topple is going to be using my intelligence modifier for the DC, which is really good for this build. At level 2, we get Action Search, and we also get Tactical Mind. If you don't know, this is a newer fighter ability. Basically, you can use your second wind, the 1d10, and you can use it on an ability check, which is pretty nice. And then at level 3, we're picking the Psi Warrior subclass. I'll go ahead and read their abilities. You harbor a wellspring of psionic energy within yourself. It is represented by your psionic energy dice, which fuel powers you have from this subclass. The Psi Warrior energy dice table shows the die size and number of these dice you have when you reach certain fighter levels. So one thing that I first noticed when looking at the Psi Warrior energy dice table is you get a really generous amount of psionic energy dice. By level 17, you have 12 dice, which is a lot more than like the Battle Master, for example. Also, a lot of the features you can only use once per turn, so it ends up working out pretty well action economy wise. I'll go ahead and read the rest though. Any features in this subclass that use a psionic energy die use only the dice from this subclass. Some of your powers expend the psionic energy die as specified in a power's description, and you can't use a power if it requires you to use a die when all your psionic energy dice are expended. They mention this because the Psi Knife Rogue also has psionic energy die, and you cannot combine them, which makes sense. You regain one of your expended psionic energy dice when you finish a short rest, and you regain all of them when you finish a long rest. This is where Battle Master is a little better. You get all of them back on a short rest for Battle Master, but with the Psi Warrior, you only get one back on a short rest, so that's not great. But if you play in a campaign similar to the campaigns that I play in, I typically only have a couple fights per day anyway, so yeah. Here are the 3 abilities you start with at level 3 though. You have Protective Field. When you or another creature you can see within 30 feet of you takes damage, you can take a reaction to expend 1 psionic energy die, roll the die and reduce the damage taken by the number rolled plus your intelligence modifier. Minimum reduction of 1, as you create a momentary shield of telekinetic force. So this is similar to the Battle Master maneuver parry, but it scales with intelligence, and you can use it to take damage away from your allies, which is nice. I probably wouldn't use this one very often, but when I could use it, it would be very helpful. And then we have Psionic Strike. You can propel your weapons with psionic force once on each of your turns immediately after you hit a target within 30 feet of yourself with an attack and deal damage to it with a weapon. You can expend 1 psionic energy die, rolling it and dealing force damage to the target equal to the number rolled plus your intelligence modifier. So already you can see why I decided to use Shillelagh. One other thing that's kind of nice is Shillelagh makes your weapon force damage, and this psionic strike is also force damage. So here at level 3, all your abilities are doing force damage, which is a very reliable damage type. This psionic strike becomes enhanced at level 7 too, so when we get there, you'll be able to see how this becomes even better. Then we have telekinetic movement. You can move an object or a creature with your mind. As a magic action, choose one target you can see within 30 feet of yourself. The target must be a loose object that is larger, smaller, or one willing creature other than you. You can transport the target up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. Alternatively, the target is a tiny object. You can transport it to or from your hand. Once you take this action, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest unless you expend a psionic energy die. No action required to restore your use of it. So I feel like this ability will be more useful out of combat, but it could also be really clutch in a scenario where you have a MacGuffin sort of item that you need to grab real quick and you can instantly transport it to your hand if you're within 30 feet of it, but it has to be a loose object. So for example, I don't think you could take it from an enemy's hands or anything. But then also if you need to like get over a ledge and one of the party members isn't very athletic, you could just transport them 30 feet. So that's nice. It's basically a action misty step that you can use on someone else. And it specifically says one willing creature other than you, so you can't do it on yourself. There's a little bit of debate online of what transport means because it doesn't say teleport, it says transport, but it also could have just said move. So there's a lot of debate online of what transport means. I think it is basically teleport, but I could be wrong. And then at level 4, we get another weapon mastery. Again, this could be literally whatever you want it to be. One of the cool things about Fighter is you get so many weapon masteries now, but sometimes when you have a specific build in mind, it becomes a little overwhelming and there ends up being a lot of weapons that you might not ever use, but you have weapon masteries for them. Since our strength isn't terrible, I would get the Trident Topple weapon mastery just in case you really want to knock someone prone that's too far away from you. Might as well have it. And then here for our first feat, we're going to be taking the Fey Touched feat. This is so we can get our intelligence up to 18 and also to get a concentration spell. The thing is, I'm not multi-classing at all in this build, but I'm also not concentrating on anything. So we might as well pick up a concentration spell because why not, you know? I'm going to pick Hunter's Mark because Hunter's Mark is actually pretty good on a fighter because you end up making so much attacks later on. This fighter already has a decent amount of bonus action abilities it wants to use though, and honestly it's not super important to this build, so you could pick a completely different spell if you want. You could pick Compelled Duel if you want to be a little more tanky. You could pick Heroism if you want to be immune to the frightened condition and gain a little more temporary hit points every round. One thing that's also nice is Hunter's Mark is also force damage now, so still all your attacks are doing force damage even with this added damage. You could also take Hex, but I'd pick Hunter's Mark just because it has a more reliable damage type. And then at level 5 we get extra attack and tactical shift. Whenever you activate your second wind with a bonus action, you can move up to half your speed without provoking opportunity attacks. This tactical shift actually works really well for this build as well. This helps a lot with the skirmishing playstyle if you need to heal while you're trying to do that. And then here at level 6 we take the Charger feat. Increase your strength or dexterity score by 1 to a maximum of 20. You get improved dash. When you take the dash action, your speed increases by 10 feet for that action. So now here at level 6, our base walking speed is 30 feet. We have the Long Strider spell, so for about an hour a day our speed can be 40 feet, and then we can take the dash action with Adrenaline Rush, which makes it 80 feet, and then with improved dash we get 90 feet. So that's really good at level 6 for a fighter. And then we have Charge Attack. If you move at least 10 feet in a straight line towards a target immediately before hitting it with a melee attack roll as part of the attack action, choose one of the following effects. Gain a 1d8 bonus to the attack's damage roll, or push the target up to 10 feet away if it is no more than one size larger than you. You can use this benefit only once on each of your turns. So already you're probably starting to understand the synergies built into this character build. So here at level 6 we have about 52 hit points. We have, if you still have only chainmail, then we have about an 18 armor class. Our intelligence is already 18, so our weapon attacks and our DCs for our telekinetic abilities are pretty good. And now I'm going to go over the damage per round as well as the strategy for a 4-round combat. By the way, I found this great website, dprcalc.com. It makes calculating DPR real fast and real easy. You can literally just input character sheets from D&D Beyond, and it's pretty reliable, especially for more simple builds like this. So what we're going to be doing is on our first round of combat, we're going to be bonus action casting Shillelagh on our club or quarterstaff. At level 6, that makes our club or quarterstaff a 1d10. Then we have a +4 intelligence, so that makes our to hit +4, but then we also have the dueling fighting style, so it makes it +6. And then if we run up first round of combat, we can add a d8 from charger, and then psionic strike is a 1d8 +4 damage, and that's once per turn for both of those. And then let's say we're able to topple the creature with our quarterstaff, then we can make our next attack at advantage, and that raises the DPR a bit. So we most likely knocked prone our enemy, and so we can run away at the end of the first round, and then most likely they'll have a hard time catching up to us. So then at the beginning of the second round, we can bonus action cast Hunter's Mark on them and charge at them and hopefully get that same 1d8 from the charger feat. And then now that we have Hunter's Mark on them, we can add Hunter's Mark damage. And then we're also this turn going to go ahead and action surge. And so if we have Hunter's Mark on them, our burst round is going to be about 51 DPR, which is real nice. And essentially we're going to repeat that for the next couple rounds. That makes our 4-round average for level 6 34.8 DPR, which is pretty good for level 6. All right, then here at level 7, we get a nice new ability, 2 new abilities technically. We get Telekinetic Adept. You have mastered new ways to use your telekinetic abilities, detailed below. We get Psi Powered Leap. As a bonus action, you gain a fly speed equal to twice your speed until the end of the current turn. Once you take this bonus action, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest, unless you use a psionic energy die. No action required to restore your use of it. So yeah, you basically get a real big jump ability because it ends at the end of your current turn. If you fly up in the air and you end your turn, you're gonna fall down. So you definitely want to land somewhere. But what's nice is it says it's equal to your speed. So if you've enhanced your speed in some way, as we have, this makes it even better. And then we get a nice juicy ability, Telekinetic Thrust. When you deal damage to a target with your psionic strike, that's the ability that adds psionic energy dice in damage to a creature once per turn, plus your intelligence modifier. You can force the target to make a strength saving throw, DC 8 plus your intelligence modifier and proficiency bonus. On a failed save, you can give the target the prone condition or transport it up to 10 feet horizontally. One important thing to note here, this prone ability, unlike topple, has no size restriction. You could prone an ancient dragon of gargantuan size with this ability. Also, now that we have another way to prone a creature, I would definitely switch out the quarterstaff and go to the club. So that way we can slow and prone a target with telekinetic thrust. This makes it even harder for creatures to catch up to you after you knock them down. And then we have ability score improvement. I'm going to be going with just straight +2 to intelligence. So now we have a 20 intelligence at level 8, which is real nice. And then at level 9, we get Tactical Master. When you attack with a weapon whose mastery property you can use, you can replace that property with the push, sap, or slow property for that attack. So you know how I just mentioned to switch to the club? Now you want to go back to the quarterstaff. The reason why, if you use the quarterstaff, you now have access to the push, sap, slow, and topple weapon masteries every time you hit, and you have telekinetic thrust. So if a creature succeeds on their saving throw against telekinetic thrust and they don't fall down, as long as they're a larger, smaller creature, you can try to topple them again with the quarterstaff. So now there are 2 chances you can topple a creature, and then you can slow them on your second hit, and then if you action surged, you could sap them, and then on your 4th attack, if it hits, you can then push them, because sap and slow don't stack at all, and if a target's prone, a target's prone. So Tactical Master really makes you a tactical master. It's one of my favorite features of the new fighter. So much control, so much debilitation, and then you're just running away from them too. And then we also have the new Indomitable. If you fail a saving throw, you can re-roll it with a bonus equal to your fighter level. You must use the new roll, and you can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest. But then at level 13, you can do it twice, and at level 17, you can do it 3 times. This new Indomitable feature is real good. The level you get it at, it's already a +9 to a saving throw. At level 10, we get yet another new weapon mastery. I would pick a weapon mastery that you just don't have, like maybe pick the cleave weapon mastery from like the halberd or something, just to have the option, you know, why not? Then at level 10, we get Guarded Mind. You have resistance to psychic damage. Moreover, if you start your turn with the charmed or frightened condition, you can expend a psionic energy die, no action required, and end every effect on yourself giving you those conditions. So the psychic damage resistance is pretty situational optional but kind of nice to have. But the ability to end the charmed or frightened condition is really nice to have on a character that has a low wisdom and charisma. Also, if you're charmed and frightened, it ends both of the effects at once, which is real nice. Typically you have one or the other, but it's kind of nice that they added that as a detail anyway. And then at level 11, we get the famous fighter ability, 2 extra attacks. So now we have 3 attacks, which is real nice for this build. All right, so for level 11, we gained that great new telekinetic thrust ability so that we can knock creatures prone of any size. We capped our intelligence to 20, and our Shillelagh is now 1d12, and our psionic energy dice are now 1d10. So things are looking really good for this build. Also, you're basically guaranteed to have plate mail by now, so you're probably looking at a nice 20 armor class. We're having the same basic playstyle as level 6. The main difference now, though, is that you're going to be able to prone the target a lot easier. You're also going to be able to potentially prone multiple targets depending on how many enemies are around you, which is nice. Let's again say the first round of combat, you bonus action cast Shillelagh. You're able to hit 3 times, and I'm going to assume that the second and third hit are at advantage because you most likely prone the target. So the first round we're looking at 49.8 DPR, and then we're going to run away from them, cast Hunter's Mark on them, and we're going to action surge, and we're going to do 3 more Shillelagh attacks. And let's assume that you were able to successfully topple them on the first hit. Then for our burst round, we're looking at 106.9 DPR, and then if you average that for 4 rounds, we're looking at 68.7 DPR, which is pretty good at level 11. Okay, right here at level 12, we get the Speedy feat, and what this is going to do for us is this is going to increase our dexterity or constitution score by 1. I went ahead and increased dexterity. The main reason why is mostly for saving throws, and I'm not going to be able to get an even constitution anyway, so that's why I didn't go constitution. This increases our base speed to 40 feet, and then with the long strider spell cast on us, it makes it 50 feet. And then when you take the dash action on your turn, difficult terrain doesn't cost you extra movement for the rest of that turn. And agile movement, opportunity attacks have disadvantage against you. So let's say you're not able to prone the target that you're trying to fight, then it's okay, because if you run away from them, it'll be disadvantaged for them to hit you with a 20 armor class. So things are looking pretty good for you. And then level 13, we get studied attacks. You study your opponents and learn from each attack you make. If you make an attack roll against a creature and miss, you have advantage on your next attack roll against that creature before the end of your next turn. So this just sort of ensures more hits, which is nice. I like this ability, especially if you're unable to prone a target. This will make it a lot more likely that you're able to do it. And then here, level 14, I decided to go with the Shield Master feat. Main reason why is we already have a shield this whole time, and it's another way to make a target prone. Actually, this is even better than I thought. I was thinking about the old Shield Master feat. I forgot that this doesn't actually require a bonus action, so it's even better. Okay, yeah, so we have Shield Bash. If you attack a creature within 5 feet of you as part of the attack action and hit with a melee weapon, you can immediately bash the target with your shield if it's equipped, forcing the target to make a strength saving throw. So now, the first hit in combat for this character, you have 3 chances to topple a creature: Telekinetic Thrust, Shield Bash, or the Topple Mastery. And then this one also doesn't have a size restriction. You can only use this once per turn, but you can also only use Telekinetic Thrust once per turn. So that means that you have the chance to topple 2 creatures per turn that are of any size, and topple large or smaller. You are the toppling master. Then we also have Interposed Shield. If you're subjected to an effect that allows you to make a dexterity saving throw to take only half damage, you can take a reaction to take no damage if you succeed on the saving throw and are holding a shield. So a nice little defensive option. Nice to take no damage from fireballs if you succeed. I also want to point out something that might not be super obvious, because I've mostly been talking about the damage options of our abilities, but check this out, guys. Okay, so Telekinetic Adept, the ability to make the target prone or transport it up to 10 feet horizontally. That's 10 feet. Shield Bash, we have the option to push the target 5 feet. And then Tactical Master, we can use the push weapon mastery on any of our weapons. So with that first hit, I could telekinetic thrust them, push them 10 feet with the push mastery, so it's 20 feet, and then Shield Bash them, making it 25. with one hit. That's pretty crazy. Or I could push them 15 feet and slow them, or I could push them 10 feet, slow them, and topple them. Like, there's so many combinations and there's so many things I can do with like one single hit because I have all these synergizing abilities that all work on one attack. Also, the thematics of being able to push someone and do all this debilitating stuff to them. I feel like a caster and I have barely any spells. Level 15, we get Bulwark of Force. You can shield yourself and others with telekinetic force. As a bonus action, you can choose creatures, including yourself, within 30 feet of yourself, up to a number of creatures equal to your intelligence modifier, minimum of 1 creature. So that's 5 creatures for us. Each of the chosen creatures has half cover for 1 minute or until you have the incapacitated condition. So bonus action plus 2 AC to the party, and you also get advantage on dexterity saving throws. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish the long rest, unless you expend a psionic energy die. And you can do this all the time, basically. At level 15, you have 10 dice. And then we got ability score improvement. I decided to go with Heavy Armor Master. I needed a +1 to strength feat, and I decided might as well. So we have heavy armor on. Now, when we take bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage, is reduced by a proficiency bonus. So I think it's 5 right now, and it'll eventually be 6. So we're basically taking 5 to 6 less damage every time we get attacked. And again, we get another weapon mastery. Pick your favorite. Pick whatever you like. And now we're gonna go over the DPR for level 17. So our Shillelagh is now 2d6, and our psionic energy dice are now 1d12. We also now have yet another way to knock creatures prone with the Shield Master feat, and we have Heavy Armor Master and the Shield Master defensive option with the Dexterity save thing. And so we have a lot more survivability and even more ways to knock creatures prone. First round of combat, we bonus action Shillelagh our quarterstaff. We rush in, use the Charger, 1d8, Psionic Strike. We most likely knock the creature prone, maybe even sap them, and maybe even as well slow them. With 3 different ways to knock them prone, they're most likely prone. And so for that round, it's 52.2 DPR. And in the second round, we're going to be doing the same thing, but we're going to be action surging. And before we action surge, we're going to cast Hunter's Mark on the main target. If it stays being the same target, we're going to be doing a 110.8 for the round 2 burst round. And then for every other regular round, if we're able to keep Hunter's Mark on our target, we got 61.47 for those 2 additional rounds. That makes our average DPR at level 17, 71.5. There are definitely builds that have higher DPRs, but those builds have way less control, especially for a non-magic using class. This would probably be so fun to play, in my opinion. And then now level 18, we get this really unique and cool feature, Telekinetic Master. You always have the telekinesis spell prepared. With this feature, you can cast it without a spell slot or components, and your casting ability for it is intelligence. On each of your turns, while you maintain concentration on it, including the turn when you cast it, you can make 1 attack with a weapon as a bonus action. Once you cast the spell with this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest unless you expend a psionic energy die. So you can use this really often still. We have 12 psionic energy die at this point. If you guys don't know the telekinesis spell, I'll read it out to you. I'll just kind of, I won't read the whole thing. I'll just kind of summarize it. So it's 1 action, 60-foot range, concentration up to 10 minutes as a magic action. And then as well on later turns, you can pick a creature and object that's huge or smaller. Update from the 2014 rules. There's no weight limit now. It's just size. And if it's a creature, that they must succeed on a strength saving throw. And if they fail, you can move it 30 feet in any direction. But it has to be within the spell's range. So you can't like keep making them go up. But that means that you can maximum put them about 60 feet above your head. And then that creature has the restrain condition. What's also cool about this is you could just lift them up with your action. And then it says here, it falls at the end of your next turn unless you use this option on it again. So you could pick up a creature, push them up in the air. They're 30 feet up in the air. And then next round, you can target a different creature and that creature automatically falls at the end of that turn. And then you can still do a bonus action attack with this ability. And as I've discussed earlier, we can do a lot even if we only get 1 attack. You can use telekinetic thrust, you can use your weapon mastery, you can also use shield bash. Telekinetic thrust only lets you push things horizontally, but shield bash lets you push things in any direction, but only 5 feet. And then the push weapon mastery just says straight away from yourself. So depending on where you are located, you could potentially push them up in the air even more with your weapon attack. But the only way to do that reliably reliably is if you were using Psi Powered Leap, which already takes a bonus action. So that probably wouldn't work, but just an interesting thought. Let's say one of your party members cast Fly on you, then you could do that. That could be interesting. And then you could also move a huge or smaller object, and it doesn't matter what the weight is, which is kind of insane in my opinion. That's level 18 feature, and now we have the Epic Boon feat. There is a lot of different options you could go with, but it's important that you get your strength up. The only reason why you're getting your strength up, by the way, this will make it an 18 strength, is because we want our shield bash DC to be at least decent, and that is basically the only reason why we're statting into strength. If you don't want to take the shield master feat, then it would be probably better used with constitution to be a little tankier. But like Boon of Speed could be cool because you could make it so that you can move even faster. You also don't have a bonus action disengage ability, except for technically the second wind ability that base class fighter gets. So Boon of Speed could actually be pretty good. You could do irresistible offense. Even though Shillelagh makes your weapon attacks deal force damage, it doesn't have to deal force damage. It could still deal bludgeoning damage. And this would make it so that your bludgeoning damage ignores resistance. And you'd be able to, when you roll a nat 20, you'd be able to do an extra 18 damage, which is nice, but still pretty situational. Dimensional travel could be an alternative to the Boon of Speed. This will make it so that every time you use a magic action or attack action, you can then automatically teleport 30 feet afterwards. This would make your fighter feel a little more supernatural and a little more psychic themed, and I think that's pretty cool. And if you really want to make sure you're able to hit that first initial hit in a combat, so you can make it so they have to make 3 different saving throws to be knocked prone, then Boon of Combat Prowess will be really good. It says when you miss with an attack roll, you can hit instead, and you can do this every single turn. I'm gonna go with this just so that we can almost guarantee that you're gonna be able to topple the target at the beginning of combat. And then at level 20, we get the amazing and very unique ability of a level 20 fighter, 3 extra attacks. Now we get 4 attacks per turn, 8 attacks when we action surge. And now that I've gone over all the abilities, let's do the final DPR calculation for level 20. I didn't mention this in the level 17 DPR calculations, but you're probably going to want to use Bulwark of Force every once in a while, just so that you can get a nice half cover to you and all your party members, especially because it's a bonus action and lasts for a minute. I'm going to assume that you're doing that probably on round 3. And usually the first few rounds, depending on what kind of combat you're in, you might want to be more defensive. And so you might not cast Hunter's Mark on that second round, and you might want to do Bulwark of Force beforehand. But with us doing at least 4 attacks every round now, Hunter's Mark is actually keeping up pretty well with giving us a pretty decent damage boost, so that's nice. But here with round 1 with our Shillelagh, first hit we're for sure making and most likely toppling a target unless they have like a million legendary resistances and really high stats, which will happen at level 20. We're definitely hitting our first one, and then let's assume we get advantage on the next 3 hits. Then the damage is 68.62 for round 1. Then round 2 we do the same exact thing, but this time we cast Hunter's Mark as a bonus action, and then we action surge, which makes our level 20 burst round, if we topple the target or if we have advantage for some other reason, 145.1 DPR, which is real nice for a big burst round, especially with this being a one-handed weapon wielding shield user. And then without action surge but with Hunter's Mark up, we're looking at 82.14 DPR for the next 2 rounds, and that makes our 4-round average DPR for level 20 94.5. Now how's that for a sword and board fighter with only a couple first level spells? Now I don't know about you, but that is really good damage for a sword and board fighter with only a couple first level spells and tons of utility options in this build. I really like the Psi Warrior, and making this build made me appreciate it a lot more. I honestly overlooked it a lot when I read the 2024 Player's Handbook, mostly because there's such amazing subclasses like the newest Battle Master, and the new Eldritch Knight for an intelligence-based fighter is just so good as well. But this one is pulling its weight, and I'm impressed by it. Hope you guys enjoyed this build. It was really fun for me to make it, and I'm definitely going to be making build videos more now. I took a few month break and made a bunch of other content. I'm still not going to be doing it every single week, but probably at least once a month. If you're interested in the other content I've been making recently, here's me going over the newly introduced Archag stat block from the new monster manual, and I I also have a homebrew Archhag Patron Warlock subclass that I released. And if you want to see all its abilities, it's right there in that video. So check it out. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please like it down below. And if you want to see more, consider subscribing. Have a great rest of your day and peace out.